So I'm back for another Tales of Atlantis, specifically Tales of Convention Atlantis. This was Marscon, I want to say like 3 years ago. At Marscon, which is a convention in Williamsburg. It's actually really fun. It's a sci-fi convention. It's at a little hotel in Williamsburg that we go to pretty frequently. It's a very small convention, but they treat everyone real right. Buy vendors pizza on Friday night after setup, which is always really nice. Also, there's a masseuse there. He's my favorite masseuse. Gives really great massages. It's like $1 a minute, and everybody that I know is pretty much addicted to getting these massages at Marscon, but that's not important. The show we can run with a minimum crew. Normally we run the show with 3 people, so I think this year it was basically like me, Megan, one other person. While we were in the booth, this guy came up, and he was dressed like David Bowie from The Labyrinth, and had a juggling ball, contact juggling ball. I had asked him if he could contact juggle, and he was like, yeah, sure, definitely. And he had kind of taught me how to do some contact juggling as well, which was kind of cool. But anyway, it turns out that he is a magician, and he was actually a guest at the show and invited me to go and see his magic show happening later. And I was like, well, I don't work at that time, so sure. I told everybody, like, hey, tomorrow morning I'm gonna go see this magic show. I might be like 5 minutes late to my shift or whatever else, but you know, don't worry, I'll be back. So I get to this magic show with this contact juggler, and I was really hoping he'd do more contact juggling, but that was not the case. Really, he was just doing a lot of small sleight of hand, but he was also a hypnotist, and so he was asking for audience participation. Obviously, that's what you do when you're a hypnotist. So the first person he had come up on stage was this older lady, and she comes up, and I don't actually remember like what he had her do. It was, tame. It wasn't anything, it was a family-friendly show. Quack like a duck, or, I think maybe she had a dream about being trapped in the Lord of the Rings. Something real crazy. But at the end of it, he puts her back to sleep. When he wakes her up, like, oh, you'll forget everything, whatever else, and sends her back to her seat. I was actually standing in the back of the room because I had shown up late. I didn't want to interrupt anything. Also, I knew that I might have to leave early because I didn't know how long the show was going to go, and I had to get to my shift. So I'm in the back, and apparently her and her husband and like her newborn baby were all like sitting in the back row. The next person up for the hypnotist show was like this like maybe 10-11-year-old who was just super excited, really wanted to be hypnotized. He started to like just do little things where he'd be like, go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep, wake up. Well, in this process, there's a commotion happening over in the seats next to me with this lady that had just already been up and been hypnotized. And I'm kind of like only half paying attention because I'm, and I was kind of like getting disappointed in this magic show because I wanted to see more contact juggling. That obviously just wasn't going to happen. Anyway, at some point though, he does like the deep sleep. There's a difference when he puts you to sleep and you kind of like put your head down. And then there's a difference like when he says deep sleep, and when you say deep sleep, it's kind of like you slump over in your chair and just like you're completely gone. And then obviously, he'll wake you back up. This like little 10-year-old, 11-year-old girl, he had just gotten to the point where he was going to start putting her in a deep sleep, and he was going to keep her in the deep sleep for a long time because she was supposed to like have a wild adventure in the Harry Potter mansion or something. Who knows? But anyway, I finally figured out what the commotion was happening over on the side. When the hypnotist had what I like to call deprogrammed the lady from before, he did not deprogram her completely, so every time he was putting this little girl to sleep, she was also fall asleep, and when he would put her in a deep sleep, she would completely like slump over completely. Well, the problem is she was holding her newborn baby, and I could see that her husband was kind of worried, like wasn't really sure what was going on. So I started like inching closer and closer to them, and I think like me and her husband figured out what was going on about the same time. We were trying to get the magician's attention to be like, hey, like stop what you're doing, like can you come help us? He didn't hear us, and at that moment he said deep sleep again, and this lady like just completely slumps over, and she like falls into her husband's arms, like over to the side, flung, and she's holding her newborn still. And so I literally like run over because this baby's like falling out of her arms. And so I kind of like reach over and I'm like holding the baby upward, like into her stomach. We had basically called for the hypnotist finally. Like everyone kind of realized like there's this commotion in the back and we're just all like, "Wah!" So the hypnotist comes over and he wakes her up and she looks at me and she sees that I am literally like this holding her baby up on her, and she literally smacks me across the face. And so I just kind of back away because at that point her husband had like caught the baby and was trying to like tell her what was going on, but then the hypnotist like immediately put her back to sleep and then deprogrammed her. It was basically like, hey, you know, you will not respond unless I directly talk to you. I'm just over kind of in the back corner because like I'm just got smacked across the face. Kind of weird, just trying to help somebody out here. After this, the hypnotist went on to continue his show, and this lady and her husband were like, I don't want to be here anymore. So they like get their little stroller out and they kind of just like walk out the door. So I went and I was just like, well, this show is not about contact juggling, which I was so disappointed. And I was like, well, I'm gonna go to my work shift. So I go into the vendor hall, I get to the booth, and I really just didn't say anything about what had happened to anybody. I think we were kind of busy at that point, and just out of nowhere, I'm just like helping a customer, I'm talking to Megan, and out of nowhere, like this lady just runs up and like throws herself on top of me, gives me like this giant hug, and she's like crying, like tears down her face. And she's just like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, it's okay. Like, it's fine. She's like, my husband, he explained everything to me. And I was like, it's fine. It's fine. And then she just leaves. Like, that was it. That was the whole conversation. There wasn't like, let's talk about this. It was just like, I'm sorry. Gave me like a giant hug and left. And Megan kind of just looks at me and it's just like, do you know this person? And I was like, yeah, she punched me earlier. And that is the story about how I, as I like to call it, I saved a baby and got punched in the face. Or slapped across the face, one or the other. Ever since, I've never seen this lady again. I'm sure she has like a 3-4-year-old. That 4-year-old probably owes me their life. They probably owe me their life at this point. But yeah, that's the story. You know, we've got lots of good convention stories. Just lots of crazy things happen at conventions. Like, obviously crazy things happen in the store, but when you're out on the road, we're fending for ourselves, and there's just so many people that every single convention has probably got a story.